Mike, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thanks. So we're here in Las Vegas at an attorney's continuing education conference. A lot of people don't realize that after law school, you continue to educate yourself and learn. Why is that?
Well, gosh, in law school, they don't teach us how to win our cases. And after all, that's what clients pay us for.
And DUI is a very specialized area of the law, isn't it?
It is.
Why is that?
It is. Well, it involves a combination of forensic science and fake science, and it's important for a lawyer to be able to teach a jury which is which.
What do you mean by fake science?
The so-called field sobriety exercises, the roadside tests that the police make our clients take, which have absolutely no connection to reality. They don't measure a person's normal faculties or abilities. They're just a scam that the police use in order to arrest people.
So if I've been pulled over and let's say I blew a .08 and I stumbled around on the field sobriety test, you're telling me there's still hope?
Of course there is. First of all, in Florida at least, you're not even asked to take a breath test unless the police have already arrested you. Now, these exercises that they ask you to do, they ask you to stand on one foot. Did you have to stand on one foot to get your driver's license? Of course not. You didn't have to touch your nose to get your driver's license. You didn't have to walk heel to toe. The flying Wallendas in the circus, they didn't walk heel to toe, but the police want to arrest us if we can't.
Right, and I can tell you in yoga class I have a hard time standing on one foot and I'm sober.
And it doesn't, they ought to come up with exercises that measure what they're supposed to be testing, which is people's normal physical abilities. That's how you see if a person is actually impaired by alcohol. But standing on one foot is something that none of us ever do. Reciting the alphabet, it's very simple, but you haven't done it since you were 5 years old and you sang it then. It's just silly, and that's what I refer to as junk science. And it's important for lawyers to understand what the police are doing, why and how they're doing it, to be able to show a jury that it's not really evidence of anything.
So are these the kinds of arguments that you can make successfully in a courtroom?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that good DUI defense lawyers do is go to a lot of these seminars to learn what the police have learned. You know, I've taken the same field sobriety exercise classes that the police take when they're at the academy. And so I can walk into court with their manuals and ask them questions out of their manuals to point out that they didn't follow their own procedures. And that's how we win cases.
That's got to be very effective.
It certainly works. It certainly works.
Tell me a little bit more about your education and your experience and your background.
Well, I went to college and law school a long time ago at the University of North Carolina. I have been in Florida for almost 25 years, and I've been a criminal defense lawyer the entire time. For the past 5 or 6 years ago, I'd say probably 3/4 or more of my practice has been defending cases of DUI.
Why have you chosen to spend so much time representing DUI clients?
More people are wrongly arrested for DUI every year than any other crime on the books. And any defense lawyer would rather be defending innocent people than guilty people.
So is that what motivates you to help people in DUI cases?
Well, that's part of it. I enjoy the courtroom theatrics, and I'm good at it. And I enjoy the keeping an eye on the government, which is what the defense does. You know, the police police the rest of us. Defense lawyers police the police. And I think that's an important contribution to society.
You know, some people who, when they are faced with a DUI arrest, may feel like, I don't want to spend the money on an attorney. I want to get this over with as soon as possible. I'm just going to plead guilty. Is that a good idea?
It's not a good idea, but I've got some good advice for those people. Instead of hiring a lawyer, hire a couple of cheerleaders to escort you into court and stand next to you and look pretty while you plead guilty. And you may as well save your money. Nobody should plead guilty to a DUI without talking to a lawyer that knows how to defend them so they can learn, is it a defendable case or not? Lawyers that take a fee to walk into court and just plead guilty, those are escorts. They're nothing more.
What are some of the ramifications in Florida if somebody pleads guilty to a DUI?
Well, for starters, conviction for DUI can mean jail. It does automatically mean a loss of license, anywhere from 6 months to a year for the first time, 5 years for the second time. It affects a person's ability to get life insurance. It affects a person's ability to get a job, to travel. There can be curfews. You can be forbidden from drinking any alcohol at all. Now, drinking alcohol is not illegal. Drinking and driving even is not illegal if you don't drink too much. But as a natural consequence of a DUI conviction, lots of judges now are telling people you can't have any alcohol at all during the entire period you're on probation. If you have a drink, you go to jail.
Are people sometimes required to put breathalyzers on their cars?
They're called ignition interlocks. Some people are, and that's a growing trend in the country. And they are not great science, that, in my experience, these machines. But the theory behind the machine is if you blow into it and you have any alcohol in your system at all, the car will not start.
So if I have a DUI arrest, if I go to counseling or rehab, is that going to help me in my case?
It certainly can't hurt. Those are matters that affect later sentencing in the event a person's found guilty. My primary job is to make sure that doesn't happen. The best way to avoid a sentencing hearing is to win the case.
So that's your ultimate goal. What about people who don't want to go to trial, who are afraid of the courtroom?
Well, the courtroom can be a scary place. Part of what I do is I try to take away the mystery. I try to make it so my clients can be more comfortable as the case progresses, so that by the time they need to make their decision, fear of the courtroom isn't going to be part of their decision anymore. And that's an important thing for a lawyer to do. That's what separates the real defenders from the amateurs and the escorts.
If I pick up the phone and give you a call and you end up taking my case, what would the process be that I'd be going through?
Well, first of all, the process probably would take 3 or 4 months, maybe longer. During that time, I would be doing a whole lot of work, and so would my staff, including our private investigator. We would be basically putting together what the prosecution's case would be against us and taking it apart. What you, my client, would need to do is basically show up in court when I tell you you have to be there, and let me know when you have questions about how things are going, and we'll sit down and talk about it. I don't quote people odds on their chance of winning at the beginning of the case or even at the middle until I've done all my work. So this 3 or 4 months is my working up their case, and I tell people for right now, sit back. You got a first-class seat on Air Kessler. Let me fly the plane, and we'll talk later about how we're going to land.
Do you enjoy the courtroom fight?
I love it. I love it. I have been told by enough people that I believe it, I can't sing and I can't dance. So the courtroom is as close to showbiz as I'm ever going to get. I love it there.
What's your strategy when you're talking to a jury?
Well, first of all, I believe you should talk to jurors the way you talk to people in a bar. Just a conversation. I don't lecture to jurors. I don't yell at jurors. I try to get to know them a little, let them get to know me, and then I try to teach them why the state is wrong and why my client's not guilty of what he or she's been accused of. But I try to make it just a conversation.
And do juries respond to you?
Very well.
Now, we've been talking about alcohol, but of course, drugs are a big factor in DUI cases as well, especially prescription drugs these days, right?
They certainly can be. And the police have a heightened credential, if you will. They send their cops to training to get drug recognition evaluator certificate. And so I took that class too, because I want to be able to point out to the jurors how silly that is. That's a great example of fake science. What the police do in that kind of an investigation is they look for what they're calling symptoms of drug impairment, and the symptoms can cover everything. No matter what you look like, it's a symptom of some particular drug or class of drugs. And it's silly. I had one poor lady, the police did a DRE evaluation, and they guessed marijuana. And they charged her with driving under the influence of marijuana. Now, they didn't smell any, they didn't find any, they didn't smell it on her breath, she didn't make any statements about it, but they arrested her, they charged her, she agreed to to submit to a urine test, and when they finally brought it back from the lab 3 months later, it was 0 cannabis. And she had taken a breath test, which was also 0. She just made a couple of driving mistakes, and they thought, well, she must be drunk.
That's an amazing story. So bottom line, if someone has a DUI arrest in Florida and they're on your website taking a look at you now, why should they give you a call?
Well, they should call me or somebody that's a real defender, because we make a difference. We make a difference in people's lives, and we work very hard to keep people from getting convicted. My feeling is Nobody should volunteer to be punished by the government unless they have no choice at all. My job is to give them a choice.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.